Free Enterprise community, good morning and welcome on in. We are bringing you Game 2 of Oscredwin and Infinious in the best of 32 round. I am joined by my co-commentator, and hey, how are you doing this morning?
Well, I'm not quite awake yet, but I'm sure that once this race gets rolling, it will be plenty exciting enough to actually, fully wake me up better than any sort of coffee or anything like that could do. So very excited to see these two runners and, kind of interested in these objectives here too with the 2 character checks.
Yeah, this is very interesting. Our 4th and 5th objectives can be either a character hunt or a boss objective. So the fact that they're both character hunts means we're going to be doing less boss hunts and more scrounging around trying to, come up with a package or a sand ruby. What's kind of your opening play on these flag sets if you've played?
Well, I haven't played with bracket flags that much, and even if, the ones I have, I'll admit fully, I'm not really that good with these flags to begin with. But a lot of what I've seen some of the better runners do is they'll go up, they'll check watery pass, they'll do all that looting and like that, especially if they find if they have a telestart in addition to that Cecil so they can exit back out. It's mostly just find something that gets you going since you can't buy things, but it looks like we're going to have the full power couple start instead.
Yeah, I am very much a fan of that. We also get a pan as a starting key item. We have a Lunar Sparkle in Baron, so this is a very, very nice start. We do have to wait to get that Dark Knight Cecil online, so we're going to be still looking for a little bit of power in this early part of the seed. So it'd be very interesting to see where our runners will choose to go first.
Yeah, and I assume that it will end up being a thing where the goal is basically how quickly can I take on that Mount Ordeals? Can I fade the fade the Fabul check, fade even Antline or something like that, and try and get there quicker to get that Cecil going, to get that Paladin start online. I also want to point out real quick that we do have some emulator issues happening over on Oscredwin's side. They are getting fixed in a little bit here. You will see Infinious pause for about a minute or so while we or about 10 seconds or so while we figured that out.
Yeah, while that happens, technical issues happen. Appreciate your patience with this. We do see Infinious going for Watery Pass. And as you kind of mentioned, that's kind of a popular spot for people to go. There's a good amount of density of chests. The tends to be a little bit higher weighted, but even still, this is brackets. This is not Swiss, so you're going to be lucky if you can find one good item out of all these checks. That's the nature of brackets. It's more skill testing. So it's definitely going to be fun to see what kind of items we get or don't get, for that matter.
Yeah, and an important thing to note about these watery pass chests too is with the flags that we have on the T-Pro flags, this is one of those slightly incentivized locations that can have a little bit better loot than some of the other ones as well, because there's no other reason to come here. So there is that better chance of getting the good things you're looking for. The other day I saw a Zeus gauntlet out of one of these as well, which helped quite a bit too.
Yeah, we do see Oscredwin actually getting going now, so that's good. They got their technical issues sorted out. So they're going to be going, and I mean, the one race, I saw recently, had a headband, had a black belt, had one other item. We do see a Stardust here for Infinious, but yeah, seeing more than one item, is one decent item, I should say, is something to celebrate here. So the fact that Infinious pulled, Stardust and Odin, which isn't terribly exciting, It would have been a little bit more exciting on Swiss, where you could have sold that for actual money, but on these flags, everything sells for nothing. So the only money you're going to be making is either from bosses or random encounters, should our runners choose to take any.
Yeah, and a lot of what I've noticed too is a lot of what runners will do on these flags for money is it's really incentivized grinds that aren't eggs, as far as like sirens go. If you have sirens, doing kangaroos gives you a ton of money. If you are okay with doing the entire giant, which with these objectives, 2 character hunts is the only way in this flag set that you can absolutely guarantee you will not be required to go to the giant. You can do the D machine grind there, which gives a good amount of money as well. So it really also sort of changes the way that you approach how you're going to get those endgame levels, because you have to think, okay, how am I going to get my endgame funding as well? But we do see Infinious going up Mount Hobbs here and finding a Tella being guarded by, guards.
Yeah, as Chat has pointed out, they do have a Gaia drum as well. So between that and the Stardust, does have a lit bolt. If I were me, you may want to hold on to one of them, although we do actually make it through this just with 1 Jade item used, which is just absolutely fantastic, because you don't know what else we're going to find. These J items could be the only ones we find for the rest of this early game.
Yeah, and with that Tella pickup as well, you really want to get up Mount Ordeals as soon as humanly possible, because now you've got 2/3 of your party is going to get online. But sort of like I touched on a little bit with the watery pass thing, is one thing that Tella is very useful for in these early spots as well, not so much now that Infinious has passed them, is if you want to do some really deep looting in some of these places, you now have that source of exit available to you. So you can just hit that, pop right out of there, don't have to walk all the way back out, and that can save you a lot of time while also still giving you a lot of chance to find something to really get your party going. But we have seen Oscredwin taking a bit of a different approach and actually going through these Castle Eblin checks instead.
Yeah, this is I noticed this is a popular check for a lot of runners lately. It provides a high density of chests. Again, with that T Pro, tends to be a little bit higher tiered. You do have to watch out for the 3 trap chests that are here. We do see Oscredwin picking up. I think they found 2 of them so far. I don't know that these really picked up anything fantastic quite yet. I mean, I think I saw an Earth Hammer. I believe that was on his side. But this is, not so far, not proving to really hold all that much fantastic yet.
Yeah, we saw the Earth Hammer, which is good because we know the Cid is somewhere in the seed. If he's somewhere early, that Earth Hammer could help, say, if you find an early gauntlet. And we also saw a ninja shirt for a non-existent edge. And over on Infinious side, we are seeing the D-Lunars sitting here in a cave, just waiting to be knocked over.
Yep, throws out that Gaia drum. That's 2 bosses very quickly taken care of. Do find a party rock, which I imagine Infinious would bolt right for that treasury to turn in.
I mean, I would certainly hope so, because now that we're on the T-Pro flags, now that we're on, you can't buy anything flags, even if that treasury is not as good, it's a lot more exciting than it was back on Swiss flags.
Yeah, we're still on max tier 6, so we're not going to be finding an X-Cow, we're not going to be finding a Crystal Sword, an Avenger, something to really get that Cecil online, but we can still find, items like a Rune Axe, a Light Sword, we can find, trying to think, what else for this party might you want to see, if you're Infinious or Oscredwin when they get that Earth Crystal.
Bow for Rosa. a really good bow for Rosa. I think Artemis arrows can be in these chests as well. If I'm remembering correct, I think they're tier 6. That could help. Stardust Rod. There's some pretty good things that could be here, but we're going to see if they are.
Yeah, and the good thing with Infinious having that Tela, he can just exit right out, save a little bit of extra time. Does pick up a strength ring, does pick up a black belt. I didn't see what else was there. Oh yeah, saw power shirt, a crystal ring, a siren. So that was a pretty decent treasury. What would you give that rating?
I think for max 6, I would give that like an actual 8 out of 10, because that's gonna get a pretty good early boost if you put that power shirt, say, on your Cecil. Once you get him upgraded, he's gonna have a pretty easy time getting through a lot of this stuff. You've got a Gungnir if you happen to find just Kane around, so he can do some early game work too. A ninja shirt is also good for Infinious if he doesn't end up going and doing Castle Eblon like Oscredwin did. It means that they both have one, and essentially that sort of advantage has been nullified. So there's a lot of really good stuff in that treasury. It's not the big hype items you could get if this wasn't the max 10 or max 6, but it is about one of the better max 6 treasuries I've seen in quite a while.
Yeah, agreed. We see Infinious going and picking up some tents, which are just absolutely fantastic. For me, whether they're on Swiss or on brackets, they're probably one of my top 3 items to buy early on or at any point pretty much during the seed.
Yeah, camping supply is always very important, especially once we get up to the moon and start doing that big moon dive where you want to be able to heal while you're down there and not have to go all the way out and all the way back up and all the way back down. So pretty good thing to find early on. And, those Troya shops always seem to never have anything for me, so it's nice to see that there's something good in there for him this seed.
Yeah, it made sense for him to do that. He was already in Troya, having raided that treasury. You have those 2 item shops. It's a logical choice to make. I do want to point out, it's just the little things that amuse you sometimes. Oscredwin choosing to use that hovercraft from Damsian just to glide on over to Antlion.
I mean, it's a nice hovercraft. You might as well, take the car for a ride every now and again. The airship is like your family van that gets people from place to place, but the hovercraft is like the cool Ferrari that you're driving for the sake of driving it.
Yeah, absolutely. You have to take it out of the garage every once in a while. On Infinious side, we're going to see a Kenazo, which is fantastic to see him out of the way if you're one of the runners. Same with those D-Lunars. Get some of these rude bosses done so you don't have to worry about them later in some potentially really rough spots.
Yeah, and that's kind of like a thing harkening back to the start of the seed too, is that we did see that sparkle in Baron Castle, and there's sort of like 2 ways of thinking about that. There's thinking about it in terms of like, if this is Wyvern, it might suck. If this is Ogopogo, it might be annoying because I will have to definitely heal afterwards before going to the second fight. But that's also a sparkle that's out of the way, that will not be blocking something important from you. So that's pretty good knowledge to have too. What's going to interest me right now on Oscredwin's side, now that he has that Earth Crystal, is he going to do that Fabul check, knowing if he finds underground access anywhere on Earth outside of Fabul, he can actually single dip it because they have that pan from the start already.
Yeah, that's a very good point. That's one that some people, will take right away just because, there could be a chance of underground access or they maybe don't want to forget it. We do see Infinious pick up a Legend Sword from that Fabul defense, so that's required in some way. But that's very interesting. For me, I like to wait if possible, but I've seen runners burned by that too. by trying to fade that as long as possible, and then it ends up turning out something like, maybe the harp that leads to, a hard required, legend sword, and then you're kind of behind. But it's one of those things that can go either way.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things where, you have the pan, both of our runners are going to end up going to Fabul eventually, if not just chasing that pan. So I don't think there's too much of a risk if Oscredwin doesn't go there of him not getting that legend sword unless he just forgets. But it's like chat saying, it's like, I'm not... Single dipping Fabul is a scary proposition a lot of the time. You lose the free heals, you're going way up like that. But it is a risk, and at some point in time, when you're at that 1-in-1 stage and everything's on the line, it's like, do you just play it safe, or do you start taking risks like that? And that's what's interesting to me on that possibility.
Yeah, and that's a good point too. We do have that starting pan, though. It kind of incentivizes people to kind of skip it, but it's one of those things. Like, it feels risky either way. I do want to give a shout out to Poorly Drawn Beast to the raid. Thank you so much. And on Infinious side, we see a Leviathan on the first spot at Ordeals. Not going to be a problem for him. Not going to be a problem for Oscredwin when he goes up there, which he's going up there now.
Yep, it looks like the log flume continues, as it were.
Yeah, I heard that was a thing that came up last night. Since we are still kind of in the 24-hour rule for no spoilers, unfortunately, I can't ask about it or ask where it originated from. Although, I did see, discussion in the Free Enterprise Discord about it, and it was, having a little laugh, even if I didn't quite understand what the what it was quite about.
Yep, I'm just gonna let that one hang there, just quietly, just as a nice little treat for anyone who knows what it is. And we're just gonna go from there. It'll be our little in-joke.
Yeah, that's the one thing about the community is big on the memes, and many of them are pretty amusing, as they come up.
So we're about to see what's at this back attack spot once we get through with this bit of inventorying over on Infinious' side. Is going to quickly back row glitch his Rosa with that bow and then pop the silent staff right back on her. And it looks like we're going to see a blue robe, and it is the back attack gauntlet on Mount Ordeals.
Oh, this is just absolutely rude. This is just one spot you do not want to see the alt gauntlet. Now, the good thing is you pretty much know if you're one runner, the other runner's going to be doing it, so both are going to have to suffer through this. But it's just a slow slog. I forget if it's the fourth fight. I think that has the 7 zombies and ghouls. But yeah, this is just going to be just kind of a slow plotting mess.
Yeah, and the real worst thing here is that we do not have any sort of mage outside of that Tella, who over on Infinious' side is currently just taking a nice look at the rocks on the ground of Mount Ordeals. And we do not have any good use of like AoE damage outside of that dark ability on Dark Knight Cecil if he wants to try and use that to get through. So this is going to take a good while because they're kind of having to single target down this entire thing.
Yeah, it makes it more awkward because those ghouls and zombies are weak to Cure 2 being undead, or I'm sorry, those zombies and ghouls. Yeah, I said that the first time. I saw Soul and my brain got confused. Those ghouls and zombies are weak to Cure 2, but those souls are absorb Cure 2. They will take damage from the black sword, but it means that you're not AoEing the Cure 2 from Rosa to take them all out at once.
Yeah, and it's just the back attack spot too, of all places. You have to sit there and wait every single time for them to all get a single attack in, and it just takes forever. It's like you would think that these zombies, if they're able to sneak up on you, would be a little bit faster.
Yeah, I mean, zombies are scary. I could see them, sneaking up on you and getting the better of you here. I don't know.
It's like one of those late season Walking Dead sort of things where they've clearly run out of ideas for how to put these characters in danger, and so they're having to come up with like these weird things like, nope, they're at the end of a bridge and there's zombies on the bridge.
Oh, I'm all for that. This is exactly what that feels like. Yeah. I never thought I would hear a free enterprise Final Fantasy IV Walking Dead crossover, but here we are, and it's amazing.
While we're on this slow zombie rampage, now also feels like a good time to give a quick shout out to, first of all, both of our runners. Make sure you give them a follow, as well as our behind the scenes crew, aside from me and Lady today, with Smipty on the restream and Cubs Rule on tracking today, both doing, as always, a wonderful job, of course, getting us this very exciting early Mount Ordeals. So make sure you give them a follow.
I mean, look, I got nothing for this other than the Liliths, believe it or not, are weak to undead still, or I'm sorry, are undead, are weak to the Cure 2. So, you could see that Cure 2 come out. Instead, Infinious chooses to bonk him with the Silent Staff, which also works. But I believe this is the 5th fight, so they'll be done very shortly after this.
Yep, and this is also another important thing to note, is that this is going to be a pretty good XP dump. I'm not sure if it ends up being more XP than that location is normally, but I know that these Mount Ordeals packs are actually pretty decent on XP, so that will help Rosa quite a bit. It won't help Dark Knight Cecil because he's about to lose all of his levels, go back down to level 1 to be a paladin, because he's going to be a new and changed man, both theoretically and literally in the game's code. But that will help get that Rosa a bit of a head start on the levels that she's going to need for later.
Yeah, absolutely. And, we don't care about the levels on Tella so much. And Infinious picks up a Magma key there. So there's our underground access. The one thing I will note is Oscredwin will get through this Ordeals fight a little bit quicker because they were able to keep their Tella up. And, throwing out those Cure 2s is going to be kind of right behind on Infinious here.
Yep, and a Bahamut at this spot, just completely non-threatening at this point in time, should be able to just knock him over before he even gets his count started here. So a nice free bonus on the way out, plus a Magma key. This seed is fully rolling, and with that Magma key, it looks like Oscredwin has been rewarded for fading Fabul this time.
Yeah, that's a very good point. You still wonder if he's going to just dive right underground after this, or if he's going to take that treasury. I would have to think maybe you just go underground first, because this party's not quite up to snuff to take any of the bosses down there, and maybe you can kind of hold it off. Maybe you can combine the treasury and Zot check at once. Just because that Cecil is, as you point out, it's going to start out at base level. Although, for Infinious, he has a Siren. Oscredwin does not have access to that, so could not go down and crack that egg to get a quick influx of XP.
have to think that if you're Oscredwin, your plan is at this point go underground, do that quick run down Feymarch to check that free chest, run down Self Cave, bonk Yong with the pan, get that check out of the way, head back up to Fabul, get those 3 checks done, and then decide where you're going to go. And then having that bit of XP from Fabul will give his Cecil a bit of a head start if he chooses to do Zot from there. The interesting question for me at this point is whether or not you take Baron in or Zot first, if you're planning on taking both of those. Baron in the easier check of the two, but Tower of Zot, the 2 character checks for the possible objectives, plus it drops you off very conveniently right back outside Baron, so you can just immediately go in and check that Baron in anyways afterwards.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Oscredwin having faded Fabul, I would have to imagine that's what they're going to do, and we'll get a very nice influx of easy XP for Cecil, which I would think then incentivizes him to go for Zot then. And then, as you mentioned, does drop you right off at Baron. And I'll be completely honest, I forgot about Baron, because I don't think either of our runners checked Baron at the start, did they?
Nope, neither one ran in, so we still have no clue who is there. We will find out eventually, because I have to imagine that you might go back up and take that and Zot before you do Dwarf Castle, especially with that Baron key that Infinious just found down the Feymarch here.
Yeah, the seed is very nice in that it's incentivizing you to remember, even if you forget Fabul, you forget Baron, we have the pan, we have the Baron key. It's leading you very nicely back into those spots. If you're someone like me who would fade them thinking they're being cheeky and then completely forget about them 40 minutes into the seed.
It's also very, very good of a seed if you want to have a very slow ramp up in difficulty, because this is really just kind of a seed that's directing you to be like, hey, you want to just go back up to Earth, but things that might be tempting there, we just saw 2 free bosses down in Feymarch. It's Dark Imps at the Asura spot, and that is Officer and Soldiers at the Leviathan spot, so we've already seen the other guards, so that is a very, very free Feymarch that you can go to when you're ready for it.
Yeah, it's free with conditions, right? Those guards at the Leviathan spot are just going to punch insanely hard. They'll get 2 actions off really before you'll be able to do much of anything. So you're gonna need an Hourglass 2, something to take them out. Same with those Dark Imps. They're not gonna punch quite as hard, but they're still gonna punch very hard. And with only having 3 party members at this point, even if you do have a Hourglass 2, it's going to be a slower grind to get through it. The good thing is we do have Tella, so if you do manage to find an Hourglass 2, then you have weak. You also have access to stone, so it makes having this Tella online just provides so much versatility for our runners.
Yeah, the question to me with that Feymarch at this point in time is actually going to be, in this seed where we have not seen sirens for sale yet, we don't know what our XP situation is going to look like. Do you actually want to sit on those Feymarch spots with their pretty reasonably big chunk of XP for as long as you can in this seed where we already have, 5 key items, we have another, I want to say 4 or 5 just sitting there ready to be taken before we even need to go down to the Feymarch anyways? Do you maybe try and sit and see if you can hit that 10 key items early? But let's look like a pink tail from Sheila 1, so that is another one to add on to that list there, and a Murasame, so still no edge, but still a pretty good pickup.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you. We have the Baron Key, we have the Earth Crystal, we have these Earth checks to do first. I would absolutely take care of them first and save those Feymarch ones for later, especially after going up Zot and getting the 2 characters, whoever they may be. They could very well be objectives too. They could be the Sid, they could be the Young we're looking for. We do see Infinious. Looks like they're going to be gearing up either go to Baron Inn or to into Baron Town and into Baron Castle. It'd be very interesting to see which way he decides to go with this.
I have to imagine that his way around it will probably be to take the Baron Inn check, take the free heal afterwards, and then immediately go into Baron Castle at being able to do both. But one thing I want to mention real quick, there's the Young actually with the Sparkle. So that is an objective once he gets through this Ogopogo here. But one thing I want to quickly note on Oscredwin's side, he has taken that trap chest with the flame dog in it up in Tower of Zot, and I've seen a lot of runners take this because it's probably the easiest trap chest in the game, honestly, or close to, and it has a chance of dropping that tier 7 loot that you're looking for, so you never know when this is just going to drop a crystal sword.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's lost a little bit of luster. As Oscredwin picks up a womp in the form of a drain spear. But, a lot of these trap chests, the lower Babel ones, the Zot, Flame Dog one, really kind of lost their luster with the bracket, with the T-Pro. You're seeing a lot less Excaliburs and Avengers than, you saw in the Swiss Seeds. So they're a little less appealing, but it's still good for Oscredwin because he still does pick up some XP. Because who knows who's going to be at the Zot 1 and Zot 2 checks. His levels are still a little bit on the low side here, and we don't have great power to push through this.
I think it's going to be kind of rough for both runners at this point, honestly, because there has not been a lot of gear for the characters they have. You can have a fully equipped Edge if you want, if you can find one, but you can have a pretty decent Cane. But if you want to have a good Cecil right now, it's looking like, the Legend Sword is actually your best bet at the moment, which is not necessarily great. Got a Power Shirt, which is okay. So, it's not the hardest thing in the world, but it is kind of not very good right now. And there's another Sparkle, so there's Pale Dim.
Yeah, that's, I believe that's every lunar boss except for, I think, we're missing Plague, I believe is the other one we're missing now.
Did we see Wyvern and I just missed it somewhere?
No, I don't think we've seen Wyvern yet. So yeah, that's another one that we're still waiting on seeing. Infinious going to be following right behind Oscredwin's footsteps, taking that Flame Dog chest. We'll be getting that Drain Spear as soon as we're through this, but Oscredwin, is rocking that black belt, the Strength Ring, has Charm Arrows, and I'm not sure what kind of bow he's rocking, but yeah, not putting out a whole lot of damage with this Cecil here. It's Rosa's actually putting out a little bit more. I think has a samurai bow on her, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I think it's a short bow on Cecil, which is, pardon me for saying this, but definitely coming up a bit short, living up to its name in this case. So, Infinious is probably going to be done with Zot before Oscredwin is at this point, just because he has that bit of an advantage with that Legend Sword equipped.
Yeah, has that Legend Sword. It just welcome the brackets, everybody. A short bow on Cecil at 32 minutes into the seed. It's just so it's such I'll say trash, but it's so amazing that it's wonderful.
Trash can be very, very good at times. Like an old horror movie from the 80s where you can tell they were really trying to be scary, and in the end they kind of just overshot it and ended up at hilarious. And that's about where these are right now. It's like, hey, we've got a short bow Cecil as opposed to a Cecil swinging a sword at this point in time. What are you going to do?
I mean, look, it's great for, great for us, great for the viewers. It's great for, me selfishly for not having to run this and cobble together, whatever mess of items you have in your inventory to get through this. And speaking of getting through, Oscredwin does manage to get through. Actually had a pretty, relatively easy time, in quotes, just slow, but does get through it. I would have to imagine, to your point, Infinious will probably be getting through this a little faster. Is up on the checks on Oscredwin right now. So while Oscredwin is, quote unquote, like ahead, Infinious has, has that Baron Key, has that Legend Sword in hand. So, is kind of, I would say, in the lead right now, as we see a Rydia at that Zot up here, and we see dolls that we know are waiting for us in Dwarf Castle.
French vanilla dolls does make Dwarf Castle a bit more appealing if you want to give it a quick check to see what the first boss is while you're down there on Oscredwin's side. So that might be a little bit of a benefit, but we do see the Cid here at that second spot in Zot. That is an objective, and I gotta feel like, obviously both of them are going to take both of these characters because they only have 3 characters and they don't have a choice. But that Cid's probably going to stick around for a while too.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's both of our characters here. Oscredwin will be, pushed to do that Baron check assuming they can get through whoever this, spot is. If this is somebody, with a like a high magic attack, like say like a Golbez, or I'm trying to think who else, like maybe even like the Maga sisters. Like this could be pretty brutal. So this is not a give me fight by any stretch.
Yeah, definitely not. And even then, once they get through this, you mentioned the Baron Key a couple moments ago. We've seen 3 of those sparkles. We know another sparkle is in Baron Castle. Are you particularly excited to run into Baron Castle and have your 50-50 shot at just blarg to the face once you get in there?
Well, first, this is elements, so, if you... It looks like Oscredwin's going to take the just Zerk and just out damage, which is the right play. It doesn't have doesn't have a very high HP pool at this spot. Does do does for that Rydia, which is probably what he wants anyway. But yeah, to your point, would I feel that confident going into Baron? No, but knowing that that's probably a Wyvern, at least that's how I would operate. You're throwing that battle speed down to 6, and you're getting your turn. Maybe you throw a run buffer up to get those Star Veils up.
Definitely, and it just does go to show how much that little bit of knowledge, of foreknowledge, counting those sparkles, knowing what bosses are around, can really change the way you approach things too. Because I gotta feel like if you hadn't seen any of these lunar bosses at this point in time, you see that sparkle there, you're like, maybe I'll take the 20% chance. But if you wanted a wide open seed at this point in time, which might be a little bit scary on Oscredwin's side, where he has not gone down the same payoffs that Infinious has, there's a Darkness Crystal for you.
I mean, it's scary in a way. The kind of good thing is, if you're these runners, we don't have access to any really good equipment to really take any of those moon bosses. So yeah, while it's kind of scary in that it offers more checks, if I'm them, I'm putting that off as absolute long as possible. I'm exhausting all of my Earth checks, knowing that I have, 2 free-ish bosses in the Feymarch. I still have top of tower. We still have, Baron to do. That's 2 checks. So yeah, that's that moon staying right where it is, unchecked, for hopefully the rest of the seed if I'm one of these runners.
Well, the thing too is if you're on Infinious' side, you have the knowledge that Oscredwin doesn't, where you know that you are just 2 key items away from go mode at this point in time. You know that Yang is in the inn, so that's objective number 5, and then you just need any 2 of Adamant, Twin Harp, and Hook. And then you're free to go once he picks up the Darkness Crystal here from that. You know, obviously you don't want to have to walk down the moon, but you would if you wanted to, and you had no other choice. So at any point in time, on Infinious' side, this seed could just be over. And I think that's got to kind of play into whether or not you go to the moon. Like, whether you think you can sneak things on the moon because you can very quickly rack up key item checks there, or whether or not you're like, okay, I'm not sure I'm ever going to need to go there.
I mean, you bring up a very good point. Yeah, that scares me more than moon access. Where's our grind coming from? You know, if we say we don't have, say if we get access to a hook and we don't find sirens in Eblin, we don't find sirens. I don't believe we've checked Tamra. We have Dwarf Castle, we have the moon. But if we don't happen to find sirens out of any of those 4 spots, where's our XP coming from? That's what would absolutely terrify me right now. Say I'm Infinious and I get my go mode, just so happens out of Baron.
Well, do you want to do some D machines today? You want to go deal with that with Tella and having someone to cast weak? You have your Rydia as an anchor, so you're good. I mean, it would be pretty safe. The downside of it is if you do D machine grind, you have to do elements and you have to do CPU, so yeah. There is a chance. I think it's affordable if you can get your party to 1200 HP to do 1200 strats in this flag set, but I'm not sure you necessarily would.
Yeah, that's very interesting. We do see Oscredwin checking that package. I believe that was a cane there. To your point, you can do D machine, and actually, as most of the people in the community know, it was a very popular strat during the highway to the 3-miss zone last year. Has kind of fallen out of favorability as you mentioned. If you do go and do that D machine grind, you're going through that giant completely, and you need to complete both those bosses to get through it in order to save your D machine, to save your levels, I should say. So it's more of a time consume, but if it comes down to it, I don't know. Maybe it would be worth it. I mean, I'm all for it just because I haven't seen it in so long. I'd like to see it just for the divergence, but that's me talking as a commentator and as a viewer more than it's the right play to make.
And I think that just sort of speaks to kind of the problem or benefit of these jet seeds, depending on how you look at it, where you're kind of like, goodness, what do I actually do? Because there are so many options on the table, and it's not like there's necessarily a best option. I'm sure there's a mathematical 100% best option, but this is a randomizer. Math doesn't always pay off, so it kind of ends up being, what do you want to do out of those? And that's probably what's going to end up deciding this, is just from here, which of these 20 different options that our runners have do each of them take.
Yeah, speaking of options to take, Infinious is sitting through this package cutscene. Looks like they want to take that cane here. Very curious. What do you think about this move? What do you think is going through Infinious's head right now?
I think what's going through his head is, I have a Gungnir and it's probably better than Yang, probably better than Sid. And I think that's part of it. And then chat saying that he didn't save too, which would be the other part of it if that's the case. But I kind of see why you might want to take a cane. I'm not sure if taking a cane is going to be sitting through the cutscene levels of good, but it could be a pretty big benefit at some point in time. And it does look like Infinious is going to go through and see the rest of this, so we'll see. And if this ends up being, demist hiding behind the package with a hook or something like that, then that is going to be a huge benefit to him.
Yeah, if you're at the point where you forgot to save and you've already sat through this cutscene and you know you have a Gungnir spear, yeah, I would say, you know what, I might as well just sit through the rest of this now to get a cane to get some more power out of this. That's not a D-miss, but that is a Octomam swimming through the floor of the Kaipo Inn.
I love when people check this spot because the 4 enemies running in thing here never ends up not entertaining me. In this case, string of tentacles sliding along the floor in this case, it's just wonderful.
Oh my god, it is absolutely one of my favorite things in this game. Same with the sprites that can appear at the first Zot spot, the Dwarf Castle checks. I am all for the extra sprites showing up in these seeds. But yeah, the swag kind of walk in at the Kaipo spot is, never fails to get a laugh out of me.
Ooh, there's a bedfu.
A bedfu, and knowing how these things usually go, it means Sand Ruby is on the moon behind the Mass Muni altar.
Yep, with an evil wall or something there guarding it, so that you know that you're not going to take that fight unless you absolutely have to. So,
speaking of fights that people are going to take, Oscredwin looks like they're gearing up to take on either the Dark Imps or the Baron Guards at this spot at the Feymarch.
Well, they do have 1 hourglass too, and I think the way I would approach that is you can save ahead of one of them, pick one of the 2 fights, throw that hourglass out there, see what it has. If it doesn't pay off, then you can just reset out, take the next fight, and still have that hourglass to throw at that point in time. So it's pretty safe to check at very least one of them, but possibly both of them. And do have those Medusa arrows that will help as well from Rosa. So this is definitely doable. And I think, this is probably a pretty good play.
Yeah, heads up play too by Oscredwin. Heals Cecil, does not heal anybody else, so is going to be employing cover strats here. As to Cecil in the back row too, is going to be putting up, looks like a blink on Cecil, so the way these Baron guards or these Kaipo guards are hitting, I was going to say not hitting very hard. There was a 52, and then there was a 550 that came out. So not exactly free, but if we can land, that hourglass, we can land that stone. This will hopefully, become very free very soon.
Yep, and we will see how it goes very shortly here. We're just going to need to... The good thing about this particular fight out of the 2 is you only need to take down the officer in the back, and then the soldiers are just very confused, and they're like, oh, I was fighting you, person in the exact same armor as me. At which point in time they just start hitting themselves, and they end up taking themselves out of the fight. But we are going to see... Oh, the stone actually does land out of Tella, and also... there is a wyvern in this castle.
Wow, I'm sorry. Good thing these are on VODs. I never would have believed that Tella had not only landed a stone, but landed it on all of them. And it could be potentially value here with that tower key pickup. So this is, still very much a race here. If either one of these checks maybe didn't pan out, you'd start to feel like maybe Oscredwin's behind, but Tower Key's a very nice pickup.
Yep, and also preserving that hourglass for this fight as well if he chooses to use it, so this is pretty safe as well. That Cecil will probably not go down, but it does look like he is going to take the other way around this of just blinking up, saving that hourglass for later, possibly for throwing at some King Ryus on the moon instead.
Yeah, but I don't think they took a save after this, so it's going to really need to do something here quickly to stop them, to get them down, because Cecil is in critical health here. This fight can go south very quickly.
It is a little bit of a risky play. It does look like he's just going to try and land that stone again, so we'll see if Tella can pull off the twofer here. But nope, does end up going down. Needs to throw the hourglass or something at some point in time to make this a little bit safer, because he is going to get punched down pretty quickly from here with that Cecil not able to cover right now.
Does try to use that hourglass too. I think had it queued up on Cecil, so with Cecil going down, he loses the hourglass too. Unfortunately, does have to reset out and do this again. I would have to imagine, will probably throw out that hourglass too, maybe a little quicker this time to try to get through this. But yeah, I don't hate the gamble from him just to go in without saving. It's the time save, but unfortunately, just didn't work out for him.
Yeah, and while he's getting through this officer-soldier fight again, do you want to quickly pop back over onto Infinious' side? Note that he has found Asura on the throne here at Baron Castle, is through that check. Not a boss that's going to give you too many problems at this point in time at that spot. We do see Tella landing the stone again over on Oscredwin's side, and we do see an Edward waiting in the castle here.
Wow, that's pretty exciting if we find that spoon, because Edward can use the spoon, right? Right?
Right.
He, spoiler alert, he cannot use the spoon on these flags. So yeah, that's a character no one will absolutely take.
I mean, a few people might still take him. It's just a matter of commitment at that point in time. Why not take Charm Harp Edward into your Z fight? That sounds like a great time.
I mean, we haven't seen Odin, right? Thunderstruck strats on the table. No.
But with that Edward there, that does mean that we have seen 9 characters in this seed, and that means that the only characters we haven't seen at this point are Edge and the twins. So we're pretty much only going to see dupes from this point out, aside from whichever one remaining character is on the table here. So I gotta think that these parties that our players have right now is pretty much going to resemble the parties they're going to have for the rest of the game.
Yeah, I agree. It's not terribly exciting between the Sid and the Yang, but hopefully you can find something better to put on this Cecil here. We see Infinious checking Baron Basement. I didn't happen to see who the boss was there. I don't know if anybody else picked it up.
Yeah, he reset so quickly I did not actually see the sprite, but Oscredwin through that Dark Imps fight and does get an Excalibur on his Cecil. So now he has that tower key, he has that Excalibur. This Feymarch has definitely paid off for him.
Yeah, that's absolutely fantastic. Picks up the tower key. The Excal is just going to just speed up the remainder of these checks that he has. You love to see it because this makes this race, just so much more exciting, and makes it close. And now if you're Oscredwin, where do you go now? Are you going to tower, or are you going to dwarf? As I asked that, it looks like he's answering that for me and deciding to go to tower, which having the tower key in hand makes absolute sense.
The problem I'm seeing on Oscredwin's side is he has gotten distracted by all these little rabbit holes that he's been going down. They have been paying off, potentially, depending on what's behind this tower key. But because of that, he has not gone down Sylph Cave for that pan check, has not gone back up to the overworld to check Fabul yet either. So he has ended up missing that sort of like pink tail and legend sword that Infinious has ended up getting. And, you need at least one of those. So him continuing to go for these towers, continuing to go for like stuff like that, he is delaying things that he needs. And I gotta think that he will eventually go there, but if for some reason he doesn't, that could be critically bad in the end.
Yeah, I mean, we don't have too many more checks left on the overworlds, so by virtue of just, sheer, whatever's left, he's going to be going there. I'm pausing because I'm thinking, well, he has that darkness crystal. Would he, go down the moon? But I would really have to think he's going to go turn in those free checks first before doing, anything else, like going down, to the moon.
Yeah, and really at this point in time, I think we need to see what comes from this tower to get a good idea of where the sort of state of this game is right now. Because Oscredwin has to go through everything Infinious already has. And because of that, we know that if this tower key ends up paying off, this tower key ends up being like a twin harp or a hook or an adamant, any of those 3 key items that we still need for go mode, then it does give a huge advantage to Oscredwin. But if not, if this tower key ends up just being nothing, then all of that Feymarch time was actually not a good thing for him to do, and it does swing back into Infinious's favor because he did not go down there and instead has gone to this dwarf castle for this not exactly pleasant Magus Sisters fight.
Yeah, so there's a couple things I want to point out. One, how about Silent Staff Rosa putting out 2k damage there? Those Magus Sisters, yeah, this magic is a little rough here, throwing out those tier 2 spells at roughly 800 damage. Our tracker Cubs rule did point out that Oscredwin did do that pan bonk, but that's also a little scary to me too, because if I'm him, again, I have the memory of a goldfish. It's been so long since I did that pan bonk. I might think in my head, did I actually bonk him with the pan? And I might be, thinking I have to go and do that just in case, I actually didn't. And then that's just more time you're taking. So it's just one of those things, like, to me, yeah, sometimes you just want to take care of your freebies as quickly as you can, just so you don't forget them.
Speaking of freebies, at the top of this tower, we have seen 2 of them. We've seen this Yang fight. Get your ouches ready in chat, everyone, as he goes down very easily to this Paladin Cecil script here. But we also saw, very importantly, the old Keblin and Queblin fight getting beamed up to Upper Babel there, meaning that we're pretty low on free fights at this point in time, and there's going to be some potentially scary things left for that moon if we end up going there.
Yeah, we see Oscredwin picks up a Luca key from the lower Babel check. Still has the cannon room to do, but we're looking at so at this point, yeah, we're looking for a hook, we're looking for harp, a rat tail. I don't. Our runners, I think, would still take a foo. Even an hour into it, if we do find a sand ruby. Spoon is going to be, at this point, absolutely worthless. We're still looking for the pass, but yeah, we still have a good amount of key items and checks to do here. So Moon's not off the table yet.
And another thing too is that if that Luca key ends up being something, and even if this cannon room ends up not being anything, Oscredwin has been incentivized to go into this tower based off of having that tower key. Infinious is not. Infinious is more likely to wait because keyless tower only pays off so much when you need 3 key items, and you're only getting 1 out of walking up there as opposed to getting 2 later. So if he doesn't end up going for that Feymarch, and if that Luca key ends up paying off, then that could actually be another big thing for Oscredwin. But Infinious has found hourglasses in that dwarf castle shop, and I gotta think, if you find hourglasses and you buy 3 of them, you're like, okay, I'm gonna go take a quick walk and take 2 free bosses right now.
Oh, absolutely. Gets Artemis arrows as the reward from Dwarf. It's not what you want to see, but at the same time, we've seen so little power that you might actually be kind of excited to see those Artemis arrows, knowing that we have a samurai bow. It can actually put out, a decent chunk of damage at this point, especially coupled with that strength ring and power shirt.
Yeah, and it's just, you don't want to see a dead check, but you got to expect you're going to see a lot of dead checks. You might as well have one that gives you something you can use. And Artemis Arrow is definitely something you can use, but it is a ribbon from that cannon room. So Oscredwin going to go check the Luca Cave, but this tower is almost looking like a bit of a fool's errand here, as it's just not paid off. It's been like the right play to make in this case, just off of pure math, but today it doesn't seem like it wants to give you too much to go with.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those that you don't leave on the table. Like it to me, it seems more risky, and I don't want to say silly, but borderline silly to go moon. Because it's a free check. It's free 2 checks. If you find a way to get the go mode, if you get the harp, you get the hook. You don't want to go down to moon thinking, boy, I could be potentially leaving the hook in tower. I could be leaving, the harp, or even just like a rat tail, or an adamant. There's just so many high chances for something to go wrong. Especially once you go down to the moon, that you absolutely take those 2 tower checks first.
I mean, the other thing too to note on that is you're right, but another addition onto what you're saying here is that we're almost out of rabbit holes at this point in time. We have the Luca key, and we have the moon, and we have twin harps somewhere. So these key item checks are pretty much going to be like the end of the line for whatever you're checking at this point in time. So it's kind of becoming less are you going to get something particularly interesting or not? But we do see a spoon, which, that's not very good when you can't sell it, can't throw it, and can't equip it.
Yeah, and that brings Oscredwin up to 9 key items too. So, yeah, well, although that's a D-miss, so if we can get through this fight, which is not a free fight by any stretch, although we're getting the blink up, I guess it's free with, again, in quotations, it's free in that it's going to be extremely, extremely slow, where we're getting, a few hits off. We're taking 3 hits from our good friend D-Mist, and then they're immediately going to be turning into mist form, and then we're waiting and blinking up in the meantime.
It's definitely free in that sense of like walking to a neighboring city instead of taking like a bus or a car. It's like you can, but your legs are going to hurt afterwards, and it's going to take quite a while compared to other ways of getting through. But you will get there eventually.
Yeah, it's like cross-country walking, instead of, I don't know, flying or taking some other kind of route. It's just extremely, extremely slow. And again, I'm glad I'm not the one doing this right now, because it's kind of painful to sit through.
It is, but we will get there eventually, unfortunately. It's just going to take a while. We're through 2 mist cycles already, because this spot, if I'm remembering correctly, is a little bit on the fast side as well. So this D-Mist is going to be very much playing whack-a-mole instead of, letting you actually hit her for a while so that you can take her down. So at this point in time, it's going to be a very, very long wait. And while we're on this wait, again, I'd like to give quick shout outs to both of our runners, as well as our entire restream team, myself and Lady, my wonderful co-commentator today, as well as Smekty on restream and Cubs Roll on tracking. And also give a quick shout out to the relatively new. We're a couple weeks in at this point in time. FF4FE Ladder. If you are watching this race and at some point in time you're like, you know what, this looks like a lot of fun. Well, it is. So you should maybe consider, after practicing a little bit, giving that ladder a shot and getting some of that 1v1 racing action for yourself. It's a lot of fun. Got races going basically 24/7, sort of on a schedule. Make sure you go there and check it out.
Yeah, absolutely. They have, pretty much something for everyone. They have the kind of veteran flags, I would say, and they also have what's called the supermarket sweep flag, where you have, I believe, shops are free, and you have access to pretty much every high-powered piece of gear potentially in the game, and it's a lot of fun to play, especially if you're a new player trying to get into it. You get the racing experience, but you don't have to deal with necessarily the ruder flag sets right away. You can get your feet wet. But yeah, I feel like there's something for everyone in these ladder flags.
Definitely. There is something no matter what. Even like the push B to jump flag is a good intermediate flag with a nice fun twist, sort of like the splash of lemon juice in your nice ice water for the day. And meanwhile, speaking of things for people, Infinious has gotten through that Dark Imps fight, does pick up his Excalibur, has that tower key. Is he about to go down this same long route that Oscredwin did? And once he gets through it, what will that end up leading to? Is the amount of time it's going to take Oscredwin to get through the checks that Infinious has less than the amount of time it's going to take Infinious to get through the checks that Oscredwin has? That is the big question right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Oscredwin still has these two key items to pick up. So they did get through their demist fight. So going to be walking / warping out of the sealed cave. We'll be checking that demist, and then hopefully we'll be heading to Fabul to pick up the turn in that pan and to check Sheila 1 to get their key items.
Yep, this race has sort of diverged in a way that guaranteed that they'd come back together in the end. So we really are just waiting for both of them to sort of retread each other's ground at this point in time. And I have to feel like at this point in time, if I was going to guess, I almost feel like Oscredwin has a little bit of an advantage right now, because I feel like going up, checking Fabul, checking the 2 Sheila checks, and doing Tower of Zot is a lot quicker than doing that. Although I think he hasn't done the Baron check yet either, so that might sort of work against him.
Yeah, I have to be quite honest. I honestly forgot all about the Zot check for Oscredwin. He has not done a Zot, has he?
I don't think so. Honestly, at this point in time where they sort of swapped places and then changed, I actually kind of lost track of which things that each runner has done in some ways. So I apologize if I'm incorrect on those, but it is a little bit awkward at that way. But we do see just a Moonveil from that demist, so that tower is completely haunted in terms of progression, but hey, free Moonveil.
So Chad is pointing out that Oscredwin did do Zot, so thank you for that. Apparently not Baron or Dwarf. Dwarf is another one. I forgot he didn't do. So there's still some checks for him to take care of before he goes down to that moon. Luckily is going to be going to Fabul and turning in this pan. And actually, and lost in all of that, still has to do Fabul defense here. Something I completely forgot that he has not done yet, which is good on him for remembering this, an hour and 7 minutes into the seed. So we're looking at this Fabul, we're looking at Baron, we're looking at Dwarf, and in Infinious side, he still has to do Cannon Room, and then he'll be doing Luca, but then he's going to turn in the Mist, or get the Moonveil from the Mist check, but that's pretty much it. So it's kind of hard to say, actually, for me, who's really in the lead at the moment.
think at this point in time, whoever's in the lead is whoever makes the right choice for where to go next, because we know that the next spots basically end up having to be 100% that Odin throne with the Baigen on it or the moon. And let's say that one of them goes to Baron and does the Odin throne, and that Odin throne is the Twin Harp, which leads to, say, the Adamant, then that person will be way ahead. Even just going to the moon, if one of them does top down, one of them does bottom up, then that is another huge potential swing there. And really what this race will come down to at this point in time is once both of our runners realize, okay, it has to be the Odin throne and the moon, which way do they go? And does the person who's sort of in the lead at that point in time take a different path than the other runner? Because if the one who's behind ends up just following in his opponent's footsteps, I think that person's going to end up just staying behind for the rest of it at this point.
Yeah, that's a pretty good point, and honestly is kind of what I see happening. I don't see either runner going to the moon at this point before doing the Baron basement is kind of what looks like we're converging on. That Baigen is scary, but we do have 2 blink casters, I believe, at this point. So, if we can get some blinks up, that fight will go so much better. It's still going to be a little slower, still not, quite power overwhelming with this team, but can get through it with this team, I think, without too many issues.
I tend to agree. The only possible problem I can see with that Baigen fight, in particular with these parties, is we have not found a solid offensive mage. We found Iridia that both of our players decided, no thanks, I don't want Iridia today. Thank you for offering, but I'm good. We haven't seen a Palom, we haven't found the Sand Ruby for the Fu yet. So because of that, there's no easy way of taking those arms down besides blinking and hoping that those arms get knocked down quickly. And until that happens, you're going to be getting a lot of those attacks that you have to tank with your party. And it looks like Infinious is going to fade Luca and head to the moon.
Wow, this is a very bold play, and I guess fading Baron basement at this point too. At this point, it could be. I hesitate to say the right move, but it's looking more and more like Moon is going to be the play here. It's very surprising to me to see him do this. Must feel pretty confident in his team, or maybe feels like he can pick up an anchor on the lunar dais. I'd be very curious once this race is over to ask him what his thought process is here.
I know from our overarching view where we have the information from both sides, we know that unless Odin is exactly Twin Harp or Rat Tail leading to Twin Harp, that this moon is definitely required, because we need at least 2 key items to finish the seed. So from Infinious' side, what he knows, unless I've misremembered, is the only key item options for him available on the table are finding that D-Mist, which he doesn't know is in Luca Cave, Odin Throne, and all of these moon checks. And I think, at that point in time, the map is almost leading you to the moon there. And speaking of being led to the moon, you have an edge. You aren't quite finished with your level grind. Do you take that edge knowing that you have a ninja sword and a ninja shirt available to you?
I think you absolutely do take him, even given the probably wonky agility situation. I'm not sure what that Tella is at, although he's only at level 22, so I believe may still have 9 agility. But Chad is pointing out that Oscredwin is going to this Baigan fight without saving, so it's kind of a risky play. See that Cess a little bit low in health, does get the Cure 3 off on him. Don't want to see a wipe here because we're not sure the last time that he saved, but a 4,500 for that X-Cal coming out on Baigans is very nice to see.
He does have a save before taking that Wyvern fight in the save spot in the Watery Pass, because he did take a wipe to the Wyvern and had to reset back to it. So the worst case scenario is that he has to do the Wyvern again. But I also have to think that if you're on Oscredwin's side, you're kind of feeling a little bit behind, because you faded those freebies out of the Sheila check and the Fabul check for most of the seed, and you saw that it was a Legend Sword and a Pink Tail. You got to be thinking, whoa, this is not very good. But we do see a Sand Ruby here at the Odin Throne, so that is a free foo if Oscredwin wants to take him, but no progression. But in some ways, isn't foo the real progression anyways?
I mean, Fu is absolutely progression in that, once you have Nuke, he tends to just blow the seed up. Even at this point, an hour, almost an hour and 15 minutes, I think you still take that Fu. You have a Rosa, you have a Cecil, but that's pretty much it. He doesn't know that Edge is waiting for him down at the Lunar Dais, so I think you absolutely take that Fu here.
Yeah, and there's plenty in Oscredwin's party you can get rid of. You can get rid of the Sid or the Yong. Either one's going to be an okay choice in favor of that Fu, and that will be a great way of rounding out his party at this point in time.
Yeah. Meanwhile, we do see Infinious taking Gold Dragon fights. I believe had 2 Sirens in his inventory, I want to say. Makes a heads-up play to down the Tella, knowing that he has, agility manipulations to do, wants to keep him in that anchor spot, does get a life glitch off, so does pull 180,000 experience out of this, is really going to be getting his team really online here.
Yeah, and I gotta think that the question in the end is going to be, how much does this, does Oscredwin do a same level grind once he gets to the moon? And does this level, if not, does this level grind sort of equalize the advantage that Oscredwin will have from picking up that Fu? Because, the good thing about picking up a mop is it's very, very good at wiping the floor with the rest of the seed. So at this point in time, I gotta think that Oscredwin might be incentivized to not do an immediate level grind, and through that, he might end up pulling a little bit ahead, at least temporarily, based off of that.
Yeah, that's a good point. You're having to do these moon bosses. You're going to be picking up a lot of XP. I do want to give credit to Infinious. That was not an easy thing to do. Going into that fight with Tala down, having to revive him to get the week off, to get the Hourglass 2 off. That's a fight that could have gone sideways very quickly. That is not an easy thing to pull off.
Yeah, I mean, he is through with this level grind, is going to start checking these moon spots, so we're about to see, what pays off here. And again, Oscredwin has not gone back to check that Sand Ruby. Thinking about it, he did not take that package check and does not know that Fu is in that bed. Actually, that was Infinious who checked that, so he is not going to even see that there, and that could be a pretty big downside to this, unfortunately. I can't say that I would immediately rush to check the Sand Ruby if I didn't know what it was an hour and 17 minutes into the seed when I'm about to head to the moon and just finish up. So I can't say, why is he doing this? But at the same time, from our, perch up here, we can be like, well, he should have gone and gotten that Fu.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's a hindsight is 2020 kind of thing, right? You feel like, well, Moon's kind of your only way. You want to rush there, and it feels kind of out of the way to go check that Kaipo spot. At the same time, I just have bias towards Fu. That he's a gated character. To me, it might be worth the time just to take the minute or so, fly over to check, and if it's not him, okay, you reset out or whatever. But maybe feels like Fu could be here, or just feels like, I'm confident in my team. Whatever I have, I'll just it's just not worth it to make that check.
Speaking of things of questionable amounts of worth it, how would you like to fight this Odin here at this Ribbon Room today, which is not necessarily the kindest boss in the world? There are worse things to be here, but there are definitely better things to be here too.
Yeah, I mean, as our tracker has pointed out, that Eddie all of a sudden looks like a a cheeky play to take just for this spot. Although, you have Cecil putting out 5,500, you have a Thunderclaw on edge, that's another 5,400. It's going to be very close. He might actually get through this before the Odin comes out. And wow, actually manages to get through it. What a heads up play to know that he's got that Thunderclaw, to equip it on edge, and just manages just to zerk, all that HP down. Only picks up a rat tail from it, but that's still potentially progression.
Yep, and with Oscredwin doing their own walk down the moon, and it looks like he's either going to end up level grinding here or starting down at the bottom of the moon. Gotta feel like Infinious definitely in the driver's seat right now, because if you're following in your opponent's footsteps like Oscredwin is at the moment, you really need to be able to go a lot quicker than them to make up the ground you're going to lose just from not having this. I mean, you're already behind at this point in time. And it does look like he might not go for that level grind first, though.
Yeah, again, I don't dislike the move just because of, they're over 10 key items, or at 10 key items. I don't know. Math is hard. But, will be picking up quite a bit of experience, so you don't necessarily need to do a level grind, although knowing this Odin is here, that could potentially be kind of a roadblock for him here. It doesn't have quite the power of levels that Infinious has. I mean, Infinious, I feel like was probably one or two turns away or hits away from that Odin coming out. I don't imagine Oscredwin will be able to get through it quite as quickly as Infinious did.
Yeah, and speaking of Infinious, does get through that Mylon Z at the White Spear altar. Not a threatening boss. And honestly, at this point in time where Infinious is as powerful as he is, no boss is threatening if you can just hit it for 5k a turn with 3 Berserkers. But does pick up a full moon, so you can get that back row glitch onto edge, which should help out a little bit should he run into the right bosses for it. But going to go down and check this Masamune altar next instead.
Yeah, to your point, that's a plague. This is a very free fight with our anchoring situation the way it is. You get a couple berserks up. Anyone that's berserked, at RA1 is going to be able to survive the count. The count will not count down fast enough for them. So this is a very free fight you like to see here. But yeah, Oscredwin, like you said, following in Infinious' footsteps, they have not played bad at all this seed. I would say the one misstep was, not thinking that Wyvern would be at, Baron and having to take a reset there. That's maybe about the worst misstep, I want to say, but, they played this, I would say, pretty well, made all the logical checks. It's just Infinious decided to, fade that Luca and fade that Baron basement and opted to go down to the moon. But this is one that could have absolutely, burned Infinious as much as it could have helped Oscredwin.
Yeah, and when you consider that Oscredwin has gone through a lot of extra things, him being this close to where Infinious is pretty good. But speaking of pretty good, how about an Avenger that you can pop onto that Cecil with an Excalibur?
Yeah, we talked very early in the seed about, oh my goodness, where's this power coming from? Yeah, I think we know where the power is coming from. It's coming by way of a strength ring, a power shirt, an X-Cal with a Avenger sitting in our inventory we can pop on any given time. That's where our power is coming from, the rest of the seed. You have that. You really don't need anything else.
Yeah, we're starting to hit that point where we are ticking from just regular power whelming to power overwhelming at this point in time. And one other important thing to note, right now we know that only the Adamant, the Hook, and the Twin Harp are on the table. There is the Twin Harp will give something, but there's only 3 more checks on the moon, so something has got to hit at some point in time soon. We also got the pass still on there. So this has got to start paying off at this point where we're at the Crystal Sword altar.
Yeah, we're pretty much guaranteed. I would say we're going back up to the overworld at this point, unless we happen to find, the Adamant and the Hook here. But I'm personally really hoping for, say, like the Adamant and Harp, just to get a little bit of late game music going on in here. Yeah,
the saddest bracket and Swiss seeds for these Lali-Ho League ones have always been the ones that don't lead to the Harp objective, because Harp is wonderful. Harp is honestly my favorite part of these, so definitely hoping to see that drop out of this water hag fight that Infinious has just cleared his way through.
Receives a pass, which is actually a very good pickup here. It's not progression in that it's an objective, but it still means you don't have to come back down to the lunar subterranean once we get all of our checks taken care of here. So yeah, very nice pickup. So if you're Oscredwin, what could you do to kind of regain the lead? I mean, obviously, again, we're sitting here, we have the knowledge of both runners. We know what Infinious is doing that Oscredwin has not, or vice versa. But knowing what we know, what do you think Oscredwin could do to kind of get himself back into this race?
That's a difficult question, because we're just so far into this seed that it's gonna kind of come down to just little things here. I think it actually is going to end up being on Infinious' side to kind of be his race to lose at this point in time. If he decides to, for some reason, go check the Baron Throne or go check anything else. But at this point in time, because we kind of know that top-down Moon was sort of the right play a bit here, because we know that at very least one of the... Well, I don't want to say at very least one of the Hook or Adamant has to be here. If it's Twin Harp, both the Twin Harp and Rat Tail could have the other two. But whatever the next thing that's going to pay off has to be either at this Mirasame altar with this Golbez fight that Infinious is going through right now, or over at Cave Value.
Yeah, there's a good discussion going on in chat. That was pointed out that Infinious hasn't done Luca, so you kind of wonder like what would bring him to that route, as we see a ha 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 at this Murasame spot. I don't think is going to be terribly scary. I believe Rosa has a ribbon on, which is why she's not affected by that hold gas. So we'll be able to throw up a wall or two. So very, very good. Actually, I don't see that Shadow demolished anybody there. So I'm not really quite sure what Golbez is talking about. I guess he's full. I don't think he got to eat anybody. So maybe he had a big lunch before he came in here. I'm not really quite sure what happened.
Yeah, definitely. And, that is really good. That means he's going to be able to get through this fight pretty easily. Of course, Golbez just throwing that virus onto the edge, who does not have a wall on him after getting the wall up on basically every other character. But this Golbez will not last very long, getting hit for quad 9s off of that Excalibur Avenger Cecil. So that's pretty much a free fight at this point in time. The question is, what does this end up being? Because I think the scariest possibility for Infinious is if this ends up being the harp, he chases it and the harp is nothing. Because if that harp is nothing for, well, actually that harp can't be nothing. Yeah. No, that harp is, if that harp ends up being nothing, the rat tail ends up leading to either the hook or the adamant, and Cave Bahamut has the other one, then that could swing it back to Oscredwin's side if Oscredwin goes and does Cave Bahamut. So it does look like Infinious is going to chase this harp back. You're right that rat tail can't lead to hook. Thank you, Zoe.
Yeah,
that is a very good point.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm glad Zoe pointed that out, because I trying to think of the progression here. Now, Infinious did take a safety save. Now, I'm not sure what that means though, because if they do harp, then you're not going to save scum out of that. So yeah, this could be a potentially scary play with K value left on the table, but I would have to think it's going to lead to some progression, but I really don't know.
I mean, there is still a chance that it ends up being Bahamut Cave if it's hook into rat tail into adamant, but it's a pure 50-50 coin flip at this point in time. So this music is even hyper than usual, because this music will basically determine the rest of the game. Oh, it's Infinious accidentally grabbing the wrong chocobo there.
The yellow chocobo is kind of like the bane of my existence and bane of Infinious existence right now. Just so easy just to accidentally talk to one of those hyperactive birds instead of the right one you need.
And meanwhile, over on Oscredwin's side, he's not getting the same good RNG that Infinious got on the Golbez fight. Does have 2 party members knocked down off of it. Still doable. Unfortunately, one of them is that Excalibur Cecil, so that is going to hurt a little bit there.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. I think Shadow also kind of realized, you know what, actually, I am hungry. I am going to get some snacks in me after all.
And to answer a question real quick from chat, we do not know who the cave value boss is. We have a few pretty good ideas. I don't believe we've seen Rubicant yet. I don't believe we've seen Mylon and Friends yet. I know we've seen Mylon Z. So there's not very many bosses left that it can be, and I don't think there's anything particularly threatening that could be at cave value at this point in time.
Yeah, while Oscredwin gets through the rest of this Golbez fight, we are going to be quiet because it's time for music. So enjoy. All right, as Infinious gets to that fight, I believe that was Final Fantasy II, the battle music, oldie but goodie. We see Oscredwin looks like going to be making the same play as, oh boy, there's a hook. So that's a rat tail, that's a pink tail turn in. So yeah, very unfortunate for Oscredwin, but yeah.
Yeah, and at this point in time, Infinious sort of has Oscredwin on the ropes, so to speak, a little bit here, because we know absolutely 100% this is go mode for Infinious. We know this will be go mode for Oscredwin once he gets there. It does, at this point in time, come down to the Z fight. And while the Berserker party that Infinious has is pretty stable looking, there is always the possibility that Z fight goes wrong. And that's going to be kind of what it rests on at this point in time, is just whether or not Infinious can execute the Z fight properly.
Yeah, I mean, Infinious has really actually kind of a crazy amount of levels, by virtue of taking popping those 2 sirens, taking those gold dragons, getting that influx of XP, and then pretty much full cleared the lunar subterrae, only fading Cave Bahamut. So has just a massive amount of XP. I don't think that his Z fight is going to. I cannot see it going south. And especially if somehow maybe we get another Avenger out of this. Just the power of this team is just going to be insane at this point.
It absolutely is, and we will be getting to that Z fight shortly. But first, let's have a quick round 2 of that wonderful Final Fantasy II battle theme music while we get these last few things through on Infinious' side. Well, with that, Oscredwin is through, and Infinious is at this fight now, and I think that means that we kind of have to rush through the whole Z flags and chat and all that thing to ask the big question, if you'd like to handle it here, Lady.
Yeah, my goodness. I'm going to quickly catch up. Over 500 randomized Z sprites. Can't move Z from the final location. We throw out the crystal. There's going to be a randomized sprite. I guess the question comes down to, is the butt we're kicking tonight, this afternoon now for where I'm sitting, is the butt going to be cute or not cute?
I mean, they're all cute in their own special ways. Even the one that's just a literal text box is still cute.
There's a couple that are amazing but terrifying. I would not classify them as cute, but they are all good in their own way, absolutely. And I have not seen this one before. This is Metal Miss. Looks like from a Sonic CD, I believe. This is a very interesting one. I don't know. Would you classify this one as cute?
Definitely, especially its like cute like slide that it's got with it for some reason. I would assume that you kind of need that there for context, because him just kind of floating in the void would look a little bit weird.
Yeah, as chat's pointing out, it's from Sonic CD from Stardust Speedway. It's been a few years since I've played this, but yeah, that I believe, yeah, looks like to be it. But yeah, very very cool background. Meshes well with the with the whatever that's going on in the background. Actually, you know what? I never thought to ask what is going on in the background here of the Z fight.
I don't know. It's supposed to be like space, but also you're in the center of the moon, so you're like not in space. It's just kind of like this weird void of energy, and then there's like this bright light behind you, and then things go backwards, and I don't know.
Yeah, as I get mesmerized by the background. Apparently we're supposed to be in Void, as Scala Kitty has pointed out in chat, which makes sense. Infinious is just putting out an insane amount of damage here with his team. Throws out a dart for 4,600. Oscredwin is now going into their Z fight. I don't see, quite him catching up, but he still nonetheless in the Z fight right now. So it's still, at the end of the day, it's still a very close race here.
And I want to give like huge props to Oscredwin in this fight, because you have to think a little bit about their routes through this. And Infinious, got here first, is looking like he might take this home as long as nothing ends up going wrong here, like the combo platter of Meteor after Big Bang or something like that, taking him out. But Oscredwin basically 100%ed the seed. The only thing in the seed he did not do was cave value. So he is just being this close, given that, is a huge note, as we do see the rocks beginning to fall over on Infinious' side.
Yeah, we see rocks, we see the flash, we see the crack, we see the fade. That is Infinious with a GG's, a final race spot time of 1 hour, 40 minutes, and 1 second. And now we see on his stream we switched to a cricket play, I suppose. I'm sorry, that threw me off a little bit, but that is amazing. And sounds like we are joined by Infinious now. GG's.
GG's. Yeah, that was a fun one compared to the last one.
Yeah, that started out, kind of slow, but the power got kind of overwhelming pretty quickly there. Picking up that X-Cal, having access to the power shirt. Yeah, I mean, what are your thoughts having done this? Pretty much full clearing everything.
I wish I wasn't swinging a legend sword for like the first half of that seed.
Yeah.
I was really digging, trying to see, all right, what do I have that can actually be of use? And it's like, yeah, it actually is a legend sword, isn't it? Oh, this feels really bad. Power shirt and lift. Also, I think that is probably the most work that a silent staff power shirt / black belt has ever done in the history of FE, I think.
Yeah, throwing out 2,000 damage at the Magus Sisters and Dwarf. That was pretty nuts to see.
Also the Asura fight that was in Baron Castle, that was also was sweet.
One thing I want to ask you, you decide to go down to Moon, having faded Baron Basement and Luca. Like, kind of take us through what your mindset is at that time.
So my thinking at that point is I just full clear. Let's see, I'd full clear tower and basically got nothing. Right? I got a 10th Kian. That was about it. I did Feymarch. I got X-Cal, which is, and don't get me wrong, X-Cal is great, but it's not progression. So I felt really behind. So I figured that Oscredwin probably checked sealed cave. So I faded that, and I saw Baigan there. I thought, nah, just no. So I figured those were just reasonable things to just fade, and I'll just go to the moon.
It ended up turning out to be the right choice to make. With this win, you now move on to I believe it's the best of 16.
Boy, best of 16. I'm looking forward. But yeah, I get your point. It's around a 16. But yeah, looking forward to to having the team centaur fight. So that's against Zoe. So looking forward to it. It'll be fun. It'll be a fun one.
Yeah, absolutely. Nth, you have any questions for Infinious?
No, you got basically all the ones that I was going to ask. Just wanted to say, GG's on a very, very well-run race. Ended up being very close in the end, even though your route ended up being, that much quicker. And really, those choices ended up being the deciding factor in the end. So, very good job on figuring out the seed and making good choices through it.
Yeah, okay, no worries. Also, just to give you a heads up, you'll find where the add-on is on the spoiler log pretty soon, by the way. But again, thank you to both of you for doing commentary. Thank you, Cubs Rule, for actually not rolling the seed and pushing the buttons, and thank you, Smakey, for rolling the seed and being very nice to us for once.
Yeah, GG's to you. Enjoy this. Get some rest and get ready for your next match. Very exciting.
Yeah. Good luck of me getting to sleep at 1 after that race, but yeah, I'll try. Thank you.
Yeah, good point.
Okay. Catch you later.
All right. Again, GG's to Infinious. And in the meantime, we are joined by Oscredwin, who has finished their Z fight. A little herring at the end, but finishes at 1 hour and 41 minutes at 55 seconds. Very well done, Oscredwin. That was tremendously run. I mean, how are you feeling right now?
I'm shaking. I'm sweating. That was really, really intense. I just keep going back to what I've been thinking of as my wipe against the inventory boss when I accidentally trashed my sirens just before going to Zot.
I'll be honest, I didn't catch that so much. I mean, I was focused on kind of the efficiency of your checks. You full cleared Earth pretty much, which unfortunately didn't pay out for you, but it was pretty amazing to see how close you were neck and neck with Infinious. He chose to kind of take that, he took that moon, having faded Luca and Baron Basement, as it were, so it's kind of astonishing that you only finish in 1 hour and 54 minutes behind him at that point. So I hope you're feeling pretty good about your play, even though it may not be the result you wanted.
Yeah, like 95% of what I did, I'm like super, super happy with. I was clearing bosses at a speed I like. I was making efficient use of my resources. I was single dipping Fabul, single dipping Feymarch, one trip down into Sylph Cave. Tello was stoning the Feymarch bosses, which was really fun. It's always nice to get those guys really out of the way really fast, because usually either you fade them or you take forever killing them, and that was no fun. And that's usually no fun. But
yeah, and speaking of fading things, one thing I wanted to ask you is you had that you faded Fabul basically as long as was humanly possible in that seed. And once you got there, you got that legend sword, you got that pink tail. What's going through your mind at that point in time?
Oh, I was really happy about that. Those are not progressive items. They're both 2-go mode things, but I hadn't seen the adamant, I hadn't seen the hook. Those were very, very late in the seed. So I'm like, I did Fabul as fast as I could. I routed it in very efficiently, and I didn't lose anything by getting all of it super late. I think at that point I still had Baron, Dwarf, Odin's Spot, and the Moon to go, and just taking Baron and doing Baron Castle and My Wyvern was a little sloppy, had to do that twice. But I did Odin Spot into Baron Throne because that's faster if you're definitely going to do both of them, and I was definitely going to do both of them. I had the levels, I had the team to do it. So
Yeah. You know, for the record, I think I said you were an hour and 54 minutes. I meant a minute and 54 seconds. So yeah, you know, absolutely, you know, well done. That should absolutely be cleared up. Yeah, I mean, you to me it feels like you made the play I think most people would have done. You know, it felt like a gamble to me, Infinious going down to the moon. But then again, you know, I'm not in this tournament. I'm not in this, you know, bracket. I would say I'm not in this bracket, you know, part of the tournament. So, you know, it's hard to say what the right play is. But still, yeah, just the checks you made. You know,
yeah, sealed cave is usually like a sealed cave with the spoon would have been like half the time, and except my power was Cecil, preferably Zerked with Excal, and there was a demist. I couldn't leave the demist behind. There was 2 chances for that to pay out really, really strong. I'm happy with how I ran it. I made a couple of mistakes, but everybody makes some mistakes every run. And yeah, I did it. I liked my routing. It was pretty efficient, I think. There's no way you go top down, take the harp, and then nope out with like 2 more with that much still on the moon. So you have to do the whole LST at that point.
Yeah, you and Infinious. I'm sorry. Go ahead if you're finished with that.
No, I just finished.
Okay. I was going to say, you know, you and Infinious, you both full cleared the lunar subterranean. You both decided to fade Cave Bahamut, which you know, I think surprised a lot of us that they would leave that there. You know, I guess, you know, real quick, what's you know, what was kind of your thought process behind that?
I didn't ask Infinious about this, but I expect we were both gambling. Like, I felt really, really behind with the Baron Castle, how bad that was, the Sealed Cave, how bad that was, the tower play, which was also, I think, useless. And leaving Dwarf, which is, because of the money there, pretty common play. So if Dwarf had something, I don't think it did, but if Dwarf had something, like, that would have been really good. So I was expecting him to beat me by 10 minutes. With all of the rabbit holes I went down, but it looks like he did a bunch of them too, and you know, I was still pretty fast, so we had a pretty good race. I'm looking forward to rewatching it tomorrow on YouTube. Yeah,
absolutely. And I've kind of taken up the airwaves here. Do you have any other, you know, kind of thoughts or questions for Oscredwin before we kind of close this out?
No, we've basically gotten through everything I had for questions. Just want to again say, you know, GG's on a very, very well-run race. And, you know, you're absolutely right. Like, your routing was pretty efficient through the seed. You ending up, you know, a minute 54 seconds behind in a seed where your opponent, where you did like Luca Cave and other things that your opponent didn't end up doing is very, very impressive, and definitely, you know, nothing to be ashamed of for today's race at all. You ran an extremely good race.
Thank you. I'm really happy. Thanks for the commentary. I'm looking forward to listening to it, and the tracking and all the hard work you guys behind the scenes are doing.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, I'm not sure if this was your first tournament, and, you know, if it was, and even if it wasn't, I mean, you played extremely well, should absolutely feel great about your play. If you know, plan to continue on doing the ladder, or, you know, coming back for next tournament, that's a force to be reckoned with.
This was my second tournament. I did 3-3 in groups on the Zima Zone 3. I'm looking forward to the next one in a few months.
Okay, well, yeah, sounds good. GG's, and yeah. You have any other closing thoughts of your own?
I just really hated crashing those sirens, resetting for them, and then never using them. Like, that's going to haunt me.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those hindsight plays, but I hear what you're saying. I guess I would just want you to focus on try to focus on the good plays, and just it's one of those things that you just beat yourself up after. But anyway, again, congratulations on a well-run race, and we'll see you for the next one.
Yep. See you later.
All right, that was Oscredwin. Infinious has now moved on with this win. We are now actually going to be taking you over to RPG Limit Break. They're doing a Dragon Quest marathon, so feel free to stick around for that. Please don't spoil the results of this race. We are also going to be having a 3:00 race on Randomania for more free enterprise fun for Dark Kobold and Starman for their game one. So, definitely check that out in a couple hours. And, we'll see you all over on RPG Limit Break in the meantime. Thank you all so much for joining in, for our Restream team, for Cubs Rule, for tracking, for Smapedy, for, putting this show together. For my co-commentator, this is our first time together. This is a lot of fun together.
Absolutely, and speaking of a lot of fun, very much looking forward to the rest of the races tonight, and very much looking forward to when we're about to head you over to this Dragon Warrior 4 NES race by Shiner CCC. So, hope you enjoy it, and hope you all have a wonderful afternoon.